Imagine.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who are just coming on board, welcome. We're going to go ahead and get started. And in just another minute or two, we have more people to be let in as we go along. And for those of you who I have not had the chance to meet yet in person, live through Zoom, and of course, if you're watching this at your leisure, that's terrific. We're glad you have this recording. My name is Seth Stander. I'm the Community Aging Specialist here for HHCI Cares. I'm going to turn things over in just a minute to the director of HHCI Cares, Dr. Peggy Dettermeyer, who, if she can wave her hand, that way you've got for posterity who is sitting around. And of course, we have our guest speaker for today's Lunch and Learn, Sally Davis, who she will officially introduce. And we are so glad that you have arrived. I'm going to continue to admit folks. And just a frequently asked question, which you don't need to worry about putting in the chat unless you aren't on yet to hear my answer, which is any registrant is going to receive the recording of today's program, the slide deck which accompanies it, and further contact information for the amazing place, which is, of course, where Sally serves so ably with the rest of the team there. I think we are good to go for introductions, if you would like, Peggy.
Well, welcome. I'm Dr. Peggy Dettermeyer. As Seth indicated, I'm the Director of CARES, which stands for Caregiving, Aging, Resilience, Ethics, and Spirituality. So we offer a myriad of services here at the Hope and Healing Center, including community education programs, professional programs for various serving groups. We do one-on-one coaching. We do grief support. We have a caregiver support group, and we do research. And we also have our community ethics consultation service for people who have chronic or life-limiting illnesses and need help deciphering what the docs are telling them. So keep that in mind as you age or as you have parents that you're taking care of, and we'll be happy to try to help in any way that we can. Today we're very happy to have with us Sally Davis, who, as Seth indicated, is a member of the management team at the amazing place. She has been there for 11 years and is the Connections Director, where she runs their community education programs as well as family caregiver support programs. Sally is a nurse by training, having gotten her BSN from DePauw University and her master's in mental health nursing from the University of Tennessee-Knoxville. She lives in Houston with her husband, Tim, and they have 3 daughters. I assume most of them are grown now.
Yes, and on their own.
So
Gainfully employed.
hey, that's the best kind. So welcome to Sally. We're so glad she's here with us today, and she's going to talk about how the arts helps your brain.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you. Thank you, Peggy. It's good to be back. I don't think I've been here, gosh, I know since pre-COVID.
Right.
It's been a while. And Seth, it's good to see you. And thank you for those that are here. Okay, so yes, my name is Sally, and I am the Connections Director for Amazing Place. I've been there 12 years, and Amazing Place, everybody always asks us, what do we do? Well, what we do is we help families with the challenges of dementia and Alzheimer's. And I like the name of my title because oftentimes when folks are diagnosed with dementia, oftentimes current connections no longer are feasible, or more challenging. For example, going to church could be more challenging. Going to a restaurant, they might not be able to track conversation. So it's very important to have new connections to help the journey, so that the person with dementia can have more meaning and more purpose, as well as the caregiver getting the respite they need. So that's my role. Next slide. Okay, so how do we do this? Well, at Amazing Place, we are a Houston nonprofit. We are faith-based. We're governed by 16 sponsored churches, and we have 2 buckets of service, is how I like to describe it. We have our day program, which is on Drexel Drive, off of Richmond, between the Art Institute and Metro Urology. At the day program, we're open. Nobody spends the night. It's just for the day. We open our doors at 7:30 and everybody leaves at 6, despite what our participants think. There are no beds upstairs and nobody spends the night. So everybody leaves. So the day program has 4 pillars to their mission. We have starts with our very interactive day program team, cognitively stimulating. The minute our folks with mild to moderate dementia hit our doors, it is on. They are on. Come on in, Peggy, get the paper. Let's have coffee. Let's sit down and read about the day today and what we're going to be doing. It's just, their brains are just on. So we have a myriad of programs that we offer, and many of the arts that I'm going to share with you today, we do at Amazing Place. The arts have proven that research backs at any level of cognition, it helps improve memory, and it helps improve brain function. So also at our day program, we have the health services. The RN is on site. The RN is there to manage participant health while they're there with us. And more importantly, I feel it's to give the caregiver a break. It's to give the caregiver the respite he or she so dearly needs in this journey. And then we have family services, which is our licensed clinical social worker, who is basically holding the hands of families as they move through this journey. As I said, we work with people with mild to moderate dementia. As the disease progresses, we're always talking next steps, whether that be assisted living, whether that be memory care, whether that be I'm going to keep my loved one home and I'm going to get care come in. Whatever that's going to look like, we're helping families with that from day one. And then we have culinary services, and I'm going to chat more about this in our culinary arts portion of today. We have a chef that prepares amazing, tasty, cognitively stimulating food for us. So I'll share that. And then the second bucket we serve is the connections, which is what I manage. It's community education, such as these programs, as well as the family caregiver support. And again, this illness is not just with the person with dementia affecting, it is affecting the family, the caregiver. So what our goal is to build confident caregivers, empower them with skills so that when their loved one is home with them, they're able to manage them. Because when they're at Amazing Place, there's a team of 10 of us managing. We realize when they go home, the team is not there. But through these caregiver courses, they can learn best how to manage. And what we see on the other side, them coming back to Amazing Place, the participant is calmer, they're more engaged, they just feel more purposeful because they're being managed by a competent caregiver. And that's really what we love to be able to serve that. So that's what we do at Amazing Place, and I can take any questions you may have. Okay, next slide. So we'll get into what we're going to talk about today. So how are the arts good for the brain? I'm going to share with you creative ways you probably really have never even linked to improving or sustaining your health, thinking about the arts. But research trends that you can extend your life by up to 10 years by engaging with more art of any kind. And I really think, looking back and preparing this, thinking about the pandemic, they deemed Michael's, Hobby Lobby as essential businesses. Do you remember that? Puzzles were flying off the shelves, painting supplies were flying off the shelves. And at first I didn't quite understand why that was, but when you really think about it, it was essential to keep those stores open for how the art does work, improving your cognition, keeping you stimulating, and it's also the stress reduction piece of it. So kudos to the government for thinking ahead on that. That was great. So, okay, so that's that. Next slide. Okay, I love this quote. To live a creative life, we must lose our fear of being wrong. So many people think, oh gosh, art, it gives me goosebumps. It makes me break out in hives. Don't put me in the art room. I'm not good at it. Well, we don't have to be good at it. We don't have to be good at it. No one here, I'm not expecting the next Matisse or the next, solo ballerina performer. We just have to connect with art on some level every day, and your long-term health will improve. So this fear about being wrong, I challenge you to think back when you were 7 or 8, because research shows that when you're 7 or 8 tends to be when you were the most creative. So think about what might have brought you joy when you were 7 and 8. Think kindergarten, first grade, before the peer group starts giving you, maybe, some looks, or your siblings might be like, why are you doing that if you come from a large family? But think about what brought you joy. And for me, it's so interesting in doing this study, this talk is, I used to sing karaoke to Hello Dolly at 7 or 8. I mean, until my older siblings decided, what is she doing? And calling me out on it. And then I realized, then the shame and all that comes in, or the embarrassment. But that's really what I enjoy doing. And it was the Barbra Streisand Hello Dolly, by the way, to a Lincoln log. So I had it all going on, but I don't sing today. But I still, when I see that album, I still have good thoughts. So just think about that time period, because the fear of being wrong that's kind of just something we feel, that it's all not really there. Okay, the next slide. Okay, another good quote. Life is a great big canvas, and you should throw all the paint you can on it. Okay, so live a very colorful life. According to specialists, just 30 to 40 minutes daily, or at least weekly, of any art kind is said to help lower your stress and induce fewer physical and mental health problems. It also encourages new pathways. If you think about your brain, and we're trying to create those new pathways of learning that will think about your receptors and your cells talking to each other. It's forging those new pathways that you hadn't really thought, and growing your brain. So it can be very helpful. Okay, so this next slide, I just like to share this. This is probably the only kind of understanding from a kind of where we are with memory and how we learn information. So learning memories, bringing in memories, bringing in new information is an interactive process. It's happening all the time to us. So the first stage is sensory. And this is what's so powerful with the arts, because sensory memory is the hearing, the feeling, the touching, the tasting. And that's how we bring in information. But we have to apply meaning to it, else we're going to forget it. So if we're not mindful, or if we're not paying attention, you're going to forget it. So applying that sensory, really, the next time you're at an event, really looking and thinking and asking yourself questions like, well, what time of year may it be? What is going on in this scene? If you're looking at food, what could that taste like? Really engaging your senses. That's really how we can bring in information. Same with an emotion. So if I asked you, where you were for 9/11 or the Challenger, I mean, many of you would have a reaction to that. You would know, or the birth, or a wedding, or an anniversary of some sort. Those are all emotions. And so information brought in with emotions, very powerful. Short-term memory is the next stage. That's where our working memory is. And then our long-term memory, that's where our childhood memories are. That's where our procedural memories. This is where people often ask, again, at Amazing Place, we work with mild to moderate dementia. Our folks, many of them can still drive a car. They can drive a car because it's procedural memory. They have not forgotten how to do that, but they get lost because they have no idea where they started from. because the short-term memory is what is extremely impaired. So that's the short-term memory. Folks with cognitive disorder, even in the severe stage, have sensory memory. So that's why you'll hear in any long-term care setting, they were really big in music therapy, really big in aromatherapy has now become a big trend. So that's why the sensory memory. And I would say smell is probably one of the most powerful. So that's just, I kind of want you to understand that that's why art, when you have that aha moment, like that, if you've ever been like looked at a painting or heard a song and it was or an old photograph and you have that awe, that AWE awe, that's actually therapeutic because you're actually putting a feeling to that. And so that's why every time it just brings you that peace. So think about that. So I have those aha moments. Okay, next slide. Just briefly, you probably all are aware that we have a left and a right brain. Our left is our organizational side. It is where our language is. It's where we love to make lists. We love to be organized. That's pretty much our left brain. Right brain, that is where the creative side is. So our artists, they probably have developed that creative side. The left brain folks tend to, they don't like to color outside the lines so much. But if you really can get both hemispheres working, the more you fill up both hemispheres, the more reserve you can have if you do have a impairment. But just be aware, and that's why some arts come more easier to others, is because they are more creative. They tend to lean that way. But it doesn't mean your left brain people can't. It just means we need to allow ourselves to come out and play. That's what I like to tell my left brain people. Allow yourself to come and play today. So that's how that works. And then the next slide's about creative, the right hemisphere, which is our art. Okay, so next slide. So we commonly think of art only as the visual art, but I'm going to touch on all the art, from culinary to literary and to performing, and how that all helps us. I'm going to share stories about all of the matter, all of these types of art helps us. We are so passionate at Amazing Place about how art does invigorate the brain. Again, we employ all of those through our programs. We have singers come in and perform. We have dance troupes come in and perform. We have a dynamic art studio program. And then obviously the culinary. So I'll go through those. So the first step we're going to talk about is visual arts. Okay, making and even looking at art invigorates the brains in ways that are distinct from, than any others. Researchers liken creating art with the exercise for the brain and suggest that it's very similar to how we exercise physically and how that aids our body. It's the same phenomenon. Creating art keeps our minds sharp and it keeps us lucid well into old age. Creating art also benefits our mental health. When people engage with complex art, the brain creates new connections between the brain cells, stimulating and enhancing communication between, again, the right and left hemisphere. Next slide. And this is our program that we have at Amazing Place. It's called Everyone is an Artist. We invite all of our adults at Amazing Place to participate in our art studio about once a day, sometimes twice for adults who are really into it. These are all the different myriad ways that we participate in the arts. My favorite, actually, when I was in the clinic, the nursing office was right next to the studio. And every Monday, we would get flowers from one of our churches, whether it had been from a church service or a funeral. And so the flowers came into Amazing Place, and the ladies, and sometimes men, would arrange the flowers. They would take those flowers and they made centerpieces for our tables. And that's what was at our tables all week. So it was just such a great way to repurpose, to see the joy when all these beautiful flowers come in. And then they'd all be sitting there talking and arranging the flowers, and then everybody got to enjoy them all week. So it was just such a win-win. But everyone is an artist. This is a very popular program. Many of our participants want to be in the art program. So very popular. Okay. And a lot of the artwork, so the next slide, I'll just share that a lot of our artwork that you're going to see in this presentation was done by our participants. So we actually love showing it. Looking at art causes people to experience joy. It's the same sensation as falling in love. A neurobiologist named Ziki scanned 28 volunteers' brains as they looked at art and noticed an immediate release of dopamine, which is the hormone related to love and pleasure. Similarly, working with clay or even Play-Doh increases the release of serotonin, which elevates your mood. So it can also help with depression. Even those, while those with dementia may lose something, because again, this is art produced by our participants, what we find is even in dementia where they may lose some other abilities, the inhibitions are less inhibited, and so they're able to produce art that they never knew was inside of them. So this particular gentleman was he was in the business side. I want to say he was an investment banker for years, or lawyer, that type. Very, very good career, long career. Participant at an amazing place, went into the art room, why not? And he developed this love for art that he didn't even know he had. His family didn't even know he had it. And that, I just love that picture. His name's Bill. And it, you know, this brought him so much self-esteem, so much joy. It gave them something to talk about. We have art shows. So that's a time where we would, you know, do real serious art shows, have it displayed. The artists would stand next to their art. The caregiver would be there. We had, you know, cookies and punch, and we just really celebrated them and made them, give them joy and purpose. But I love this because this was someone who probably never, ever would have thought about picking up a paintbrush. So now his family has something to remember him by. So it's a great story. All right, next slide. Okay, so making art also reduces stress and negative emotions, creating experience similar to meditation. And this is where the stress management comes in. When you're creating art or looking at art, you look at the details and you just kind of avoid all the distractions. It just keeps those distractions from everyday life away from you. So it's a way to be really, really in a zone, so to speak. Coloring and drawing can do this as well. It stimulates the same part of the brain for meditation. I often think this is why the adult coloring books are so popular now. And again, your left brain people are coloring, but maybe they're in the lines, and your right brain people are coloring and they're outside the lines, but that's okay. We're all coloring. And I want to hit on this distraction part, and Peggy's got her phone there. I just want to share with you, those north of 50, as we become north of 50, we become distracted, all right? And we're living in a very distracting world. And a lot of it has to do with that phone. And so it's hard to, we must practice ways to focus and try not to pay attention, because it does take more of us. It takes more energy from us to do that. So just be aware we live in a world that's distracting, and we become more distracting. So that sometimes can feel like, oh my gosh, do I need an application to Amazing Place? No, you don't need an application to Amazing Place. You just need to pay attention, honestly. So I hope that decreases your anxiety a little bit. Okay, I love that slide. And then that's just other participant art. So, and some of them have like canvas, and they might have like a picture next to them. So that's beautiful art. Okay. And then lastly, about good for the art in our art studio is, let me see how that's populating. That might be one of those that bumps up. Yeah. You just keep, I think there's like 5 of them.
You got it.
Yeah. There you go. So,
Oops.
so this was what I like about our art program too, or anybody with art, it's social. It can be very social. And these are participants that were in the art class, and they were doing self-portraits. And they, again, very proud of their work and love showing them. So I love the social connection. It's a great feeling, and back to feeling. It's a great feeling to create and being around friends. And actually, it's the feeling of being in that art room that brings them back every day. Does that make so? It's the feeling of being around their friends. It's the feeling of creating that art and the stress reduction. That's what brings them back to the art room every day. Because some of these folks have never been to the art room. So it's the feelings that they get from it. So that's creating and making the visual arts. And so next step, we're going to talk about culinary arts. I bet you never even thought. Yes.
I just one question. Do y'all actually give them instruction, art instruction?
So we do, yeah, we do. It's pretty serious. Like, we'll have the canvas ready for them. There might be a picture next to them. And they do it's proctored by 2 volunteers. And so they'll give them the instructions, create this, and they will kind of go around and help with shading. Yep. Give them suggestions, maybe do a little touch up or suggest, but yeah. So it is instructional as well. So yeah, good question. Yes, so culinary arts. I bet you never even thought about even looking at food, what that does to us. Talking about good feelings. Yes, so culinary arts. So this is our chef. This is Chef Michael, and he has been preparing very creative, tasty food for us, very nutritional food for participants and staff for the last 7+ years. In fact, so good. A former participant used to tell me every day after lunch how it was Houston's best kept lunch secret. I said, well, don't tell anybody. But anyway, yeah, so he's fantastic. So next slide. So at Amazing Place, we incorporate the Memory Preservation Nutrition Program. Now that's a big word, Memory Preservation Nutrition Program. So basically what this is I like to call it the Mediterranean diet, which is, fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, lean meats, fish. But Dr. Lombardo, who developed this program, adds nuts and spices and herbs. She really, really honed in on looking at all the anti-inflammatory agents, et cetera, and antioxidants. So she's a really big proponent of that, adding that to it. So I like to say it's the Mediterranean diet on steroids with the nuts and the spices and all that. So very important. So we developed this, and experts suspect the combination of food facilitates, more self-signaling, keeping the brain vessels very healthy, open, and able to receive information. And they're also saying that the inflammation is what builds up when we eat a lot of foods that aren't good for us, but we like them very much. Well, kind of the gunk gets clogging. So that's what a lot of the anti-inflammatory foods do, is it kind of opens up it releases the gunk from the cognitive processes. So I always say it's okay to eat eat some of those things in moderation, but maybe load up on nuts and seeds and spices as a way to counteract all that. So it's really not a diet, it's a way of eating that we talk about. So the next slide is kind of a sum up of the MPN. These are our superfoods. You'll see quite a bit of similarities. Again, the fresh fruits and vegetables. The spices are very beneficial. They help with all that. I got to meet Dr. Lombardo, and I asked specifically, if you could give me the names of 3 or 4 spices, what would you recommend? Because I am not going to go out and buy a spice drawer full of spices and have them all go bad. So she recommended ginger, turmeric, and cinnamon. So that's what's at my cooktop, and I can saute with those. I can roast vegetables, poultry, fish, vegetables, etc. But those were the 3 she recommended, and I always share that with everybody. And as far as nuts go, you can see nuts really is a superfood. And nuts, believe it or not, there was a study done. I think it was in 2017 on walnuts. And there was a group that ate walnuts for a year, opposed to a group that did not. And the group that ate a walnut had better cognitive scores than those that did not. So I find that very fascinating because I think the walnut looks like a brain. If you think, look at what a walnut looks like. So if you're going to pick a nut, because we can't all just eat the quarter, the serving, right? That's the thing with nuts. We go way beyond the quarter cup serving. So, but pick the walnut if you do that. And I did bring that up when I met Dr. Lombardo. I said, the thing with nuts is you can't just eat the serving. She said, I'd rather you eat those than potato chips. I said, okay, so I'm eating my nuts. So anyway, eat your nuts. But yes, those are our superfoods that we eat at Amazing Place. Okay, next slide. All right, again, back to the sensory experience. Remember, we have better memories when we tie in a sense. So not only eating yummy brain healthy food invokes our senses of smelling and tasting, it just stimulates our brains. So what I mean by this is, if I brought a plate of chocolate chip cookies hot out of the oven, brought them into the room, I imagine every one of you would have some memory. Something would get triggered. And it could be a memory that you haven't even thought about. You forgot was even there maybe. But by maybe smelling it, tasting it, touching it, it could just evoke those memories from way back in childhood. That could be very fond. And like I said earlier, smelling is probably the most powerful. That's why sometimes you go buy a perfume or you go outside. Pine needles bring back childhood memories for me. I don't know, sunscreen, putting on sunscreen can just take you back. So, and I like to tell a story too, another story about how food does stimulate our brains and our memories. And I was at lunch as a nurse. We got to eat lunch every day, which was awesome. And Michael was serving his yummy salmon with what I thought were mashed potatoes. Looked like mashed potatoes. I saw some butter dripping, whatever he was using, dripping off, and it's like mashed potatoes. So excited. And I'm with my ladies at table. And again, everybody has dementia at the table. And we're all biting in. We're all, digging into the food. And we all took a bite. And I had no idea what I had just put in my mouth. I had no idea I had no reference point. I had zero, but I knew it wasn't mashed potato. And there was a lady at the end of the table, and she sat there, and we were all puzzled, and I could see everybody was puzzled. And this lady said, "Oh, that's a parsnip." Oh. Well, I've never eaten parsnip, so I would not even know what that was. But this was something she had eaten long ago. And so she was able to dig really far back and pull that out for us. So I was so excited. So now I know I like parsnips, mashed parsnips. But I love telling that story because that was just amazing. Okay. Recipes, they remind us of favorite times, special people in our lives, perhaps those that cooked for you, perhaps who you cooked for, perhaps recipes who have been handed down. All those gatherings we've had over the years, it just is those can provoke really meaningful memories. My mother is currently having a journey with dementia, and she lives in assisted living here in Houston. And I get to have her come over on the weekends some. And when we were there were four of us, and when we were going out on our own, she put a cookbook together for us. And it started with the recipes that we grew up on. Well, then she realized she needed more than the 5 that she served us. I'm just kidding. But anyway, so she called her friends and said, please, this is what I'm doing for the kids. Would you please give me one of your favorite recipes? And, and they did, of course, everybody did. She had the appetizers to the desserts and everything in between. And some of them kept their same writing. Like she didn't really type if it was a good meat, she kept it that way, or she typed some of them over. But everybody has their name now. And so now in her journey, when she comes to my house, I let her look at the book, because if I'm making something, she's watching and trying to be purposeful, but I have her read the book. And so now she looks at it completely different. She's just recalling her friends. And so it's just very touching that she had no idea she was going to be doing that. So it's something that she's passed on. So anyway, that's a good story. So, and then culinary therapy, I just want you to know it is a real thing. It reduces stress. It allows one to gain insight into our behavior. It can increase self-esteem, and it can increase motor movement, which is a good connection to the brain. So keep chopping if you're feeling good around you've got good motor skills. And then lastly, culinary art is just like our, creating art. It's very social. Communication and socialization are so important to the brain. Even if you didn't actually prepare, you still benefit by interacting. And we learned that during COVID that, interacting is probably the highest skill that we have to interact with others. Okay, and we're moving on to literary arts. Just as beneficial, the literary art stimulates brain and helps us preserve memories. Studies show that the literary arts is good for keeping one's gray matter, and that's where all of our signaling happens, and keep our thinking skills intact. Next slide. In a groundbreaking study on the importance of expressive writing to overcome stress and trauma, James Pennebaker has proven that regular writing will greatly improve your well-being. In fact, in his book, Writing About Emotional Experiences as a Therapeutic Process, he emphasized putting thoughts in the forms of words is healing. And that's why journaling is so incredibly helpful. Putting your thoughts in the form of words and sharing those emotions, very, very powerful. And that next slide. And that, again, this is participants. This is in our studio. And pre-COVID, we had the nonprofit called Imprint. They're another nonprofit, and one of their employees came to Amazing Place and led a journal class. So this is a group of participants who are telling story. And again, this resulted in people having memories that they hadn't shared, but they were in a very safe space to do that. So, and also, as well as sharing the stories, what they find out about literary, it's also doing the motion of handwriting. Very, very important. And I don't know if this is good. We're all used to that. But if you're really having to do the handwriting, that's even a really higher skill. During the writing process, our brain is working to handle all of these interactive processes and trying comprehension. So story creation and the physical act of writing is very powerful. Okay, and then the benefits of reading. Research trends that adults who participate in mentally challenging activities such as reading, both in early and late in life, have a slower rate of decline in memory compared to those who did not engage. Even when brain scans were positive for plaques and tangles, and that's what they're thinking causes Alzheimer's, and other signs of damage to brain, mental stimulation such as reading seem to help protect memory and thinking skills. Even reading a beloved poem or childhood bedtime story has the same effect as it does to listening to music, creating art, etc. This finding potentially addresses a question that all of us ask from time to time. Can we do anything to slow down late life cognitive decline? Yes. So read books, write more stories, and activities that keep your brain, keep your brain active, irrespective of your age, no matter how north of 50 you may be. Okay. And then lastly, we're going to talk about the benefits of performing arts. Okay. And this includes all types, the dances, dancing, going to theater, listening to music, all the performing arts. Research offers that focus training in any of the performing arts strengthens the brain's attention and improves overall cognition. Next time. So moving your feet to the rhythm is stimulating to the brain. Just tapping your feet. does something. And that's why, again, where I work, we have music, a lot of music, and you'll just see people tapping their foot, but they're engaged. They're engaged. Or you'll just see those that, you know, that just want to get up and rip a dance, and they'll just be like, they're just subtly moving. But dancing strengthens the mind-body connection. And again, it evokes those memories. It's usually a feeling. That's why we do these things. Prior to the pandemic, on Friday afternoons, we hosted ballroom dancing. So we had ballroom dancing for our participants and their caregivers. And if you think about ballroom dancing, that's a really high skill, right? Because you got to 1, 2, 3, 4. So you got to count. You got to listen to music. You got to know when to spin. You got to know how to do all that. So dancing is such a great cognitive something to participate in. So let's dance, okay? And then music. There's a researcher that explained in an interview how an old playlist of beloved songs helped a man with Alzheimer's recognize his son for the first time in a long time. As because of the sound, it stimulated an emotional part of his brain, and it helped bring back the memory. There's a documentary, I believe it's on Netflix, it's called Alive Inside. It also demonstrated the profound impact of what music can do for those with cognitive impairment. The film shows adults with moderate to severe dementia, when fitted with an iPod, with music from their youth, they're able to describe the music and dance as they used to with friends. So again, it's back to those memories and those feelings. And we've definitely seen this. I would say our biggest challenge at Amazing Place right now, because we sing and we listen to music, is picking what decade of music we're going to have. Is it going to be rock and roll? Is it going to be the gospel hymns? Is it going to be, big band swing? So that's our biggest challenge right now. So we might have to break into 2 groups, but they might not be talking during the day, but you put a hymn in front of them, they're going to sing. It's going to come out, and the feeling's going to come out. So, okay, next. All right, humming and singing is proven to help calm people down, impact their emotional well-being. Adults who participate in choirs are both socially connected on a very soulful level. I don't know if any of you have been in a choir before, but if you think about that, you're kind of, you're less inhibited, you're with the group of people, so you're at a real soulful level. I love the idea too about choirs, is that it helps intergenerational. It can get older adults working with younger people and vice versa, and quite frankly, we need more of that. And then next slide. Singing and theater. Research trends that attending an interactive exhibit heightens our learning and memory. So imaging studies reveal that when an adult is executing the movements, such as from a play, brain scans reveal that all regions of the brain are engaged and communicating during the performance. So it's a really higher level. Thank you. And then next slide. So why the arts? Okay, so why these arts? There's an increasing amount of evidence that proves art enhances brain function and has an impact on our brain's ability to communicate, recall memories and our emotions, and can raise our serotonin levels and mood. One study I want to share with you is a creativity and aging study conducted by the National Endowment of the Arts. Researchers compared the health of adults north of 65 who participated in a year-long intensive arts program. This included painting, sculpting, writing, pottery, jewelry making, singing, and they also attended exhibits, to a group who did none of that. So we had a control group. They discovered that the adults who participated in the art intervention used less medication, less likely to fall, and reported fewer doctor visits. In addition, it showed there was a positive impact on cognition, attention, and communication. So pretty profound. And like we said earlier, 30 minutes a day, 30 to 40 minutes a day, just engage in some kind of art. So in sum up, why the arts? Well, these are all the benefits that we've talked about. Being in the arts, whether it's visual, literary, culinary, or performing. just keep on connecting with art. And then I like to end with this quote by Brene Brown. If we want to make meaning, we need to make art. Cook, write, draw, doodle, paint, scrapbook, take pictures, collage, knit, rebuild an engine, sculpt, dance, decorate, act, sing. As long as we are creating, we are cultivating meaning, ... and stimulating our brains. So it is all good. You cannot go wrong with employing the arts. So thank you. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
There was a choir that was mixed of people with
Yes,
dementia and
yes, the Alzheimer's Association.
none that the Alzheimer's Association did. I assume it went out in the pandemic. Has it come back in?
Not to my knowledge, and I think it was just getting its feet too,
Right.
just before.
Yeah,
I
'cause they
remember
put on a
hearing,
big concert.
right, it's a great idea,
Oh, yeah.
super idea. But yeah, I haven't heard anything more about that. But it is interesting. The singing is phenomenal. I mean, you'll have, because with dementia, it does impact your speech. It can. And, but boy, you put a song, a hymn book in front of them or some big band music and they're going to remember all of it. It's fascinating.
Yeah, they did. I remember going to a presentation at St. Luke's of some research that they did. And they made playlists for people
Right.
of music that they liked. And they showed people that were kind of out of sorts and grumpy, and they put their headphones on and they just brighten
Lit
up.
up. Yeah, literally
It's-
light up.
Yeah. It,
Yes,
yeah.
It's fascinating.
It is fascinating
It
the
is,
way that
it
works.
is. Yeah.
I have a question about reading. Reading like quietly, or reading aloud.
Well, either one's good for you. Actually, as we get north of 50, it's quite okay to talk to yourself out loud quite a bit. I mean, it is quite okay. I mean, jokingly, my husband's always like, are you talking to your imaginary friend again? Yes, I am. But it's really a way to keep us organized and to keep us mindful, because for some reason, whenever the phone rings, we feel we have to take our glasses off and put them down, and then we don't know where we put our glasses, So it's that kind of thing. If you say it out loud, I'm putting my glasses here, and then pick up the phone, you've said it out loud. I think either is very fine, very fine. I think as we get, again, that short-term memory in all of us as we get older is what becomes more challenging. And that's just because of what's happening to us. It doesn't mean we're all going to get dementia at all. It just is what's happening to us physically. And so with reading, I hear people get frustrated that they can't always remember the content. Well, you have to give yourself some grace, and you might have to reread a passage or two a couple times, but that's okay. We just learned that it's better to keep reading than to not at all. But what you're doing is your brain just needs a little more time to catch up and to create those images that you once did, just like that when you were 20. You didn't even think about it. But, I just feel like if we give ourselves a little more grace with some of these, we won't all think that we've lost our minds.
I took care of my mother last year in the last stages of her life.
Mm.
She couldn't read herself. She tried. and
Yeah.
She couldn't. So I would read to her.
Yeah.
My brother would come read to her. She loved hearing the scriptures.
Right. Right. She could still
It
And
calmed
hearing
her
your
down.
voice.
hearing the
It calmed her
voice.
down too, because
Wow.
she didn't want to go to the bathroom. I had to make her sit, And so I would get out my old kids' books and she loved them.
Oh,
Looking at
that's
this picture, she wanted to talk about the pictures.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
And music, I would turn on. It was funny because she had different moods.
Mhm.
Sometimes she wanted to hear the bossa nova, and she'd get up and dance, or we turn on the hymns and she could sing every one of them. Every single one.
Yeah.
Of them. She loved, what's that guy? Wait, it was country western singer. I can't think of his name right now. I'm surprised.
It'll come to you. It will come to you.
Oh, she loved him. Sing, I love him. I love him. She would sing all the hymns. And it's kind of neat. She and I were sitting listening to hymns one day and we were singing. And she says, I've decided I'm going to forgive my father. And so those hymns spoke to her spirit. And he was very abusive to her. And she
She let go.
spoke to her through the hymns, even though she's in the depths of
Right.
dementia.
Mhm.
And then we found this channel. Tim Janis, if you're ever interested, it's a guy on YouTube, and he plays, some of it's hymns, some of it's just, and none of it is vocal, it's all instrumental, just beautiful music with scenes from nature.
Oh, right. That's
And she
helpful.
said, oh, I love that bird. Oh, I love that flower. You know, she just, especially when she was bedridden, you know, we had the TV.
Mhm.
And she loved watching.
So
those
she's still got joy and purpose.
scenes,
Mhm.
and she loved sitting and watching outside the window.
Mm-hmm.
And she'd yell at the people walking on the sidewalk. "Get off my property." But it gave her great joy.
Yeah,
To,
yeah.
to interact with the people in the
She was,
street
that's
and
right.
watching what the squirrels were doing.
Yeah.
She didn't like the people around her very much. She wasn't a happy dementia,
Yeah.
but she loved. But all of this is just so. Or what it just.
Well, it should validate, well, I was gonna say it should totally validate you and what you've shared with me, that you totally did the right thing.
Testified on all
Right.
of this.
And again, that's why I spend time on that sensory memory. I mean, if we all just paid attention and when we're on vacation or when we're at an event, we really want to remember. I'm so tired of this expression, let's just check the box. I mean, I hear so much, oh, it's just a check the box. Well, when you're saying that, you're not forming any memories. So you have to be purposeful about it. And so that you have those to draw from, and your family, if you do become demented, you can share that's why where I work, we like to learn about their life stories so that when they are a little agitated or a little grumpy, we can talk about, well, tell us about what it was like on the farm. And we take them back there, and that's a happy place, and they can share that with us, and we're all happy.
We found, I don't even know where this came from. We had this box of cards in a closet. My daughter came to visit one time and got it out. And it's like they call it a game, but it's not really a game. It's just like a conversation starters.
Right.
And
That's
so
okay.
she had more fun for a while. I mean, after
Yeah.
a while, she couldn't remember anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
But for a while, she had more fun going through those cards and just talking about, you know, like things like what made your family different from other people?
Yeah. That's great.
What was your most
Yeah.
fun?
Right. It's the reminiscing. Again,
Yeah.
that's a feeling. Now, some subjects may not be so happy, but you
Yeah.
know, we look about this, but reminiscing therapy is huge.
And she couldn't cook.
Yeah.
She wanted to come at you with a knife, you know.
Oh.
Or a fork, or it was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
We were always trying to find things.
Yeah.
that made her
Right,
happy. She
right.
loved the bossa nova.
Oh, that's so cute.
It was so funny.
That's cute.
Yeah.
Yeah, my mom likes flowers. So whenever we get a chance, we go buy flowers. She's just, look, even though she just saw them 5 minutes ago. Oh, those flowers. There's, oh yes, there's some pretty ones. She loves flowers. So.
This is good. Amazing.
Well, thank you. If you want to know anything more, our website, we have all kinds of, we have lots of programs, as Peggy can attest to. And if you know of anybody that you're concerned about, on our website, there's a red bar. All you have to do is hit that, put in your information, and someone will call you back and
Yes.
direct you. Because, and again, like I said, in our day program, we serve mild to moderate. However, we have programs for severe. I mean, if you are caring for someone in this moderate to severe, you need caregiver education. I mean, we will serve you because my goodness, you really need the education.
Well,
So-
and there are other programs around town too.
Right.
Care Partners has a more advanced state program.
Yep.
They will accept people who are moderate to advanced. But they also sponsor, and this is one of the best kept secrets.
This is a good
And
secret.
almost, I won't say almost every big church in Houston, but in a lot of big churches in Houston, including St. Martin's, they have a once a month program called The Gathering.
Have you
And
guys
it
heard of
runs from
this?
10 until
It's a
2
lifesaver.
usually. And they have entertainment, and at St. Martin's, because of the resources, they do live dancing almost every month, because they bring in some of the musicians that are on
Right,
staff.
Right.
And it's just phenomenal that the respite that can provide to someone for a few hours. And the different churches have different rules, like at St. Martin's. You don't have to stay with your person because they have a lot of volunteers. Some of the smaller churches require that somebody stay with the person. But those kinds of resources are just lifesavers.
I think
Yeah.
it's also important to remember, the emotional respite as well as physical respite that support groups can provide.
Yeah.
An Alzheimer's and dementia caregiver support group, general caregiver support group, grief support group, whether your loved one has physically died or whether you are experiencing different types of loss. Most of those programs that exist, whether they're on this campus, across the spectrum of the various senior services that offer such, or your own local faith community, whatever it may be, it's a time to re-socialize. It's a time to validate your feelings as being authentic. And it's an opportunity to also go ahead and to regain a sense of perspective. I don't mean to use the term schadenfreude in a bad way, but rather to go ahead and to say it's a way of holding up two truths. My path has been an unexpected and sometimes difficult one. And yet I can also, in addition to receiving support, offer support to those whose paths appear even more dire in that snapshot in time. And I do think the more that we're able to express gratitude for what we have experienced and the ability to lend our support to those who are having terrible days, we're able to go ahead and to refill our emotional buckets and find a way through a grief path, as opposed to trying to find excuses to go around or delay or self-medicate and insulate, all of which is going to lead to prolonged grief in the long run.
Very well said. That's typically our first recommendation, is to get a support group. For sure.
Do you have something like this in Dallas?
I don't know, but you know what? I'm
Check
sure
with the-
somebody on staff does
Check
know.
with the area agency on aging in Dallas.
One of the best kept secrets in this country is that every county and territory in the United States has 3 critical agencies. Peggy just mentioned the first, which is the Area Agency on Aging, the other AAA, if you will. Aging and Disability Resource Centers in Harris County, that's called Care Connection. Sometimes it's just referred to as the county's ADRC for short. And then they have long-term care ombudsman programs that serve every county and territory in America, where you have made the decision to seek or are making sure that the quality of life for someone currently residing in a long-term care facility is maximized. All of this is paid for by your tax dollars, and therefore all of this is accessible to you on demand.
Yeah. I know that we've had families that have, been with us at Amazing Place and have had to move to Dallas or had to move mom to or adult daughter. But, and I think there are some.
There are.
There are.
There are.
Adult
Yes.
day, I mean, It's, our model is so unique in that we're so faith-based. And we also, again, we serve, mild to moderate. We have very specific target population, and our founder specifically wanted it that way because folks that are mild to moderate are still living at home. And they're still pretty much, they're functional. I mean, our typical participant, they can still dress themselves, they can still feed themselves, they can interact. Boy, you'd have to peel an onion on some of them to make, you'd be surprised. But where they're challenged is living independently. They can't drive a car, so they'll get lost. They can't manage their medicine. They might get up at 8, take it again at 10. They can't cook, they'll leave the burner. The telemarketer will call. You know what happens there. So that's why they can't, they're just not safe. They don't have the filter still to in the short-term memory to be safe. And that's why they would come to us, because because two things happen. The person with dementia becomes the caregiver shadow. Because if you're my brain, I'm sticking next to you all day. So I am not going to leave your shadow. So wife or husband who used to do errands on their own suddenly has someone with them all the time, to the point where you really can't talk to them. I mean, it's because you don't want to talk about someone, in front of them. You have to be respectful. So they're either the shadow or the caregiver becomes isolated because because person with dementia doesn't want to be found out. So everybody's home. No one's moving around. No one's calling. So both of those are detrimental to the caregiver. So if they come to a place like us, they know their loved one is safe. Quite frankly, that's their number one reason for bringing them, is they need some place for them to be safe, stimulated, and interacting. And then they need the respite. So yes, I love the daycare model because I'm for anything keeping people home as long as possible. For sure. Yep.
Well, this has been terrific.
Well, thanks.
Thank you so
Well,
much
great.
for your time and talents. And for those of you who, again, are with us live or watching the recording of this program, we're glad that you've joined us either at the scheduled hour or as you are available to take in and hopefully absorb and make good use out of the information that's been shared today. We hope that everyone has a wonderful remainder of the week. Please be careful driving around NRG Stadium this weekend, which has now been apparently renamed NRG Stadium Taylor's version. So if you are going to the Taylor Swift concert series this weekend, great. Plan ahead several hours before, several hours after, and have a life-changing time. For the rest of us who will be living vicariously through those attending, have a calm weekend. All right.
I had no idea.